All right, Matt Stubbs, thank you very much for joining. How are you going today, mate?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So you're obviously currently in Sydney at the moment, just flown down, and you're about to hit a international flight in a few hours' time you just told me, to Florida for your next event of the year. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. I'm based on the Gold Coast. I just flying down to Sydney, fly out of Sydney tonight
Yep.
to head over to Florida for the second event on the World Long Drive Tour, the start of a 6 week stretch on the road, traveling across the world.
Unreal. So how many in that 6 week stretch, how many events will you be doing?
So I got 4 events across 6 weeks,
Okay.
alternating between the US and Europe, and then coming home for a little 2 week freshen up to push some more records, and then back on the road again.
That's unreal. That's unreal. So exciting. I came across you. You were doing an interview on SEN Radio with I think it was
Yeah.
Brad Davis, and yeah, and I was listening to it, I thought, I've never heard of this sport before. And then I dug you up on Instagram and started following along. And I thought, my God, this is so intriguing. Obviously it's relatively, am I right in saying it's relatively new in terms of just its exposure and growth?
Yeah, so I mean, so long drive's been around for a while. It was building up really nicely, and then COVID came in.
Of
So
course.
before COVID, they did have some big events, starting to get some household names, starting to achieve some big things for the sport, and
Yep.
then COVID shut the whole thing down. Money came out,
Mm.
so it was really unfortunate timing for the sport. But it's back on its legs now, and it looks like it's going to return to its glory days, and then keep growing. So there's a lot of promising signs with GF Sports and Entertainment coming on board as the lead investor. So they put a lot of money into the sport. So they have a lot of faith that they're going to be able to get it into a position that's both financially viable for them and the athletes. So it's something really exciting and to look forward to. And I think it's a great time that I've actually timed getting into this sport.
100%, absolutely. Well, that's obviously a good segue. So what? How did you get into it? Because obviously, it's not on mainstream media or anything like that at this point in
Yeah.
time. I'm assuming you've got a golfing background. So what made the leap? Did you just come across it one day? Was it suggested to you? Talk me through it.
Yeah, so I've played golf since I was 5. I was pushing really hard to go the college way,
Okay.
but I was at a really academically focused school, and coming from a traditional household, education came first. So I
Okay.
didn't quite have the time I needed to put into my golf to maintain and improve on that level required to go to America and play college golf. So I actually took about a 5 year break from golf when I was 18 to 23. Because at that time it's a really awkward transition in golf. From the junior level, there wasn't much in between being a junior and being a pro. So
Right.
just a flat out push to go pro at that point.
Hmm.
Um, and I was just a little bit under that level required. So I took that break and came back. And in that time, I got to a +1 handicap, which I got to at about 12 months ago now. And the goal then was always to start putting some more time into it and have a crack. Um, and I was always naturally quick on the golf course.
Right.
So anyone that watched the Masters on the weekend, I had a really short John Rahm style swing,
Okay.
like relatively the same length, but I was still able to swing 126 miles per hour on course, which is well above tour average and would be one of the fastest on tour.
Yep.
Uh, so I had coaches and mates trying to push me towards long drive. They're like, if you just swing a little bit further, you'll hit the ball pretty far. You'll get some good speed. So I was kind of like egged into it by coaches and mates. And then I was fortunate to find an event on the Gold Coast, that I went and had a crack at in the amateur division and won it by an absurd amount. Yeah, I won it by over 40 meters
Oh
or something
wow.
like that too, against guys that have been doing these events for a while.
Yep.
And at that point, the organizer of Long Drive Australia asked me if I wanted to represent Australia at the World Championships as an amateur,
Yep.
which was in 11 weeks' time. Uh, And for anyone that knows me, if I'm going to do something, it's to win it
Yep.
and putting everything I possibly can into achieving that goal. So from that point, after my first amateur long drive event, it was a full-time commitment to long drive. It was that next week that the 40 hours minimum a week training
Wow.
began. And
Yep.
it's been 9 months and 1 week today. And yeah, I can proudly say I'm one of the fastest athletes in the world now.
Yep.
Lots more improvements to come.
So the $64 million question that everyone probably wants to know is how far can you actually hit the ball? What's an average shot and what's your best shot?
So I count the PBs in comp where it actually matters.
Sure.
And I mean, I've done 2 events. Australia doesn't have the resources to have outdoor grid events. So I've done one event as an amateur, which was Worlds, and then I had my pro debut 3 weeks ago in Vegas, which I updated my PB to 440 yards. 402 meters, which was actually one of the longest of the event.
Yeah, right.
So I'm pretty happy with that one.
That's incredible. So you mentioned 40 hours of training a week. Can you break that down as to what's involved? Because obviously the average punter would think, okay, you're just hitting a ball, but there's obviously a lot more to it than that. And I've seen the videos of you actually swinging. The technical ability of the swing is completely different to what you would do on a normal golf course, right?
Yeah. So I brought in a team almost immediately to assist me in this journey. It was something that I didn't have the knowledge on. So when you don't have that, you bring in people who specialize in and you trust the process. So between my trainer, my high performance coach, my long drive coach, we coordinated a program that's roughly between 40 and 50 hours a week. Wow. Across gym, long drive specific training.
Yep.
Me and my teammate, we have a lot of sessions within the week that are very unique to golf and long drive.
Yep.
But we directly attribute those to how rapidly we've progressed.
Okay.
The speeds we've been able to achieve in a short amount of time has it unmatched in history.
Yeah, wow.
But yeah, so there's a lot of strength and conditioning with my coach Hayden Edgerton. He's been fundamental in my development of my body. It's the strongest and most athletic my body's ever been. So for long drive, you need to be an explosive all-around athlete. Like it's a full body movement. There's nothing that's getting missed, and he's just ensured that all the muscle that I produce is actually contributing to the long drive swing. Like we did a lot of research on what was required, and we see golfers and long drive athletes training ineffectively, doing movements that don't directly benefit what they want to get out of it.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
So we really feel like we've revolutionized how golfers and especially long drive athletes should train.
Yep.
And like one of the things that we have released, because it was on the news story and they wanted to put it in, we're like, okay, that's fine. But the rest of the long drive world was very surprised to find out we actually do 2 sprint training sessions a week.
Yeah. Okay.
So in our opinion, look at 100-meter sprinters. They're some of the most explosive,
powerful,
impressive athletes in the world. Like what they're able to do, launching that bottom half of the body is ridiculous.
Yep.
And for anyone that's seen a long drive swing, there is a lot of bottom half explosiveness, driving internal hip rotations, exploding out of your lead foot to increase that rotational force.
Yep.
So the more force and explosiveness you can get through the bottom half, the more it's going to benefit you. And
yeah, right.
So sprint training directly contributes to that. So on that kind of wavelength, we do have various other sessions that work on other parts of the body and the body as a whole that will release once we've gapped everyone in long drive. But then a lot of people ask about the gym focus too. One that people find surprising is we don't do any double leg bottom half exercises. It's all single leg focused.
Really? Okay, that's interesting.
If you look at a golf swing, or especially a long drive swing, there's never a time in the swing that the force is equal through both legs.
Yep.
And moving at the same time. So why train it like that?
Okay.
There's a lot of focus on all your stabilizer muscles through the hips and the top of the legs.
Yep.
A lot of rotational exercises. Another thing we've spoken about openly, in our opinion, you see a lot of golfers doing heavy cable exercises, mimicking a golf swing,
Yes.
exactly their golf swing. But from the research we've seen, the study we've seen, anecdotally, you get really strong in that position, but we want to be fast and explosive. So we want to train that movement fast and explosively, not slow and strong.
Yep.
So that's just another aspect where we've taken a different approach to most other athletes in regards to that.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And collectively, it's around 40 to 50 hours a week you're putting in across all those sort of disciplines within the training.
We're also doing a hour to 2 hours of recovery every day.
Wow.
Which people don't generally think of for golfers.
No.
And then on top of that, we don't include the hour and a half each way drive to see our coach in Brisbane 4 times a week.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. Do you pull up sore after an event, or after, several hours of hitting the ball, like because of the nature of the swing?
So if you look at my social media in particular, there's a lot of people that like to hate on long drive. And one of the most common things they say is, oh, that must destroy your back. Your back
Right.
must be in so much pain. And
Yeah.
like, I wish I could just explain to everyone how our backs are completely fine. Like, first, we've conditioned them to be able to handle these forces, and we've also progressively loaded to the speeds we're at. But then we also have certain aspects of our swing to reduce the stress on the lower back. Like, that's one of the reasons why we release that front foot, because
Yep.
if it stayed planted and you're rotating through there, you can imagine the force, because we're twisting one way to get speed and power. If you're twisting the other way with that lead leg stuck there, it would put a tremendous load on the back.
Yes, of course.
So releasing that front leg takes so much of the force away, but also increasing your speed. So it's a win-win. But yeah, just simply the strength and conditioning we've done has been fundamental as the basis for our speed, but also our longevity. Long drive athletes collectively will get a lot of injuries through their careers because they train incorrectly. So they'll make gains in speed, and once they hit that new level, the body just can't handle it, and it'll find an injury. Whereas we've been ahead of that the whole time,
Yeah,
and
right.
our speed's just been catching up to what we've physically been able to do. Like, I've hit PBs every week for 9 months.
That's impressive. Yeah, right.
That includes the last 4 sessions where I've been back for 3 weeks between my first and second event. So I was very close to becoming the fastest to ever achieve it, and the 7th person in history to achieve 230 miles per hour ball speed.
Wow. That's very cool. Do you, speaking of heading to an event, do you taper? Like, do you taper your training off as you get closer to give the body a breather, or do you try and peak at a certain time to make sure that you're ready to knock one, and hit a PB on the event day? Is there anything like that involved?
So we'll change the focus of training like leading up to an event.
Mm.
I mean, it also varies a lot because I've been back in Australia for 3 weeks leading into the second event.
Yep.
I'm going to be on the road for 4 events, with 2 of them are back to back.
Yep.
Later in the year, I've got three periods of time where I've got 3 weekends in a row of events, but that's between America, Europe, America,
Oh,
Japan, America.
yeah, right.
So the training really varies and fluctuates. Like this week, we've been focusing a lot more on grid balls, but while maintaining speed and just encouraging the shot shape we want to hit. So yeah, the signs were very promising.
So when you reference grid balls, are you talking about hitting into the nets? Is that what you mean?
No, so grid balls when it comes to the comps, hitting into the 60-yard wide fairway.
Oh, okay.
Is when this is another thing that people don't understand about long drive is when we're speed training, when we're trying to push our body to the absolute limits, we do not care where it goes.
Right.
You need to build your body. You need to reprogram your brain for it to accept that these speeds are safe.
Mm.
Is that one of the biggest hindering factors for everyone else is their brain thinking that it can't physically go this fast.
Right. Limiting beliefs.
Yeah, which I mean, between Seb and I, we've pushed quite rapidly. Even 6-7 months ago, when I was 2 months into the sport, swinging 140 miles per hour, I already knew that the limit where Kyle Berkshire was nowhere near the top of where this sport should be, and people thought I was crazy. Like the long drive professionals in Australia, when I first committed to training with my long drive coach Craig Parker, I said that I wanted to be at 150 before Worlds as an amateur 11 weeks later. And they're like, Matt, you need to be realistic. It's probably going to take more like 12 months to get to 140 miles per hour.
Yeah.
It's one of the hardest things to achieve. I did that in 3 weeks. Yeah. And then
That's impressive. Wow.
I'd achieve my goal. So I mean, that's just an emphasis on how powerful the mind is,
Absolutely.
especially in a sport where the brain is trying to protect its body from what it thinks isn't safe, but it's not actually true.
Yeah, wow. That's cool. Talk us through an event. So what's the format like? How many athletes are there? What are the specific rules around, like you mentioned before, you obviously when you're in practice, your aim is just to hit it as hard as you can without direction.
Yeah.
Does an event require direction? Do you have to stay within a certain parameter of shot or anything like that?
It does. It requires both power and finesse when it comes to competition time.
Okay.
The structure of the next event I'm competing in at Florida, we got basically the top 64 athletes in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So round one, we broke it into groups of 16, and within that group of 16, you'll round robin against every other athlete in that group.
Yep.
In groups of 4.
Okay.
So you'll have 5 sets in that round robin structure. And then within each of your round robin rounds against the other athletes, you'll complete a set. And a set is 2.5 minutes. You get 6 balls. Your longest ball in the grid counts.
Right.
No balls in the grid is 0 points.
Yep.
And then those yardages get weighed up against the people in your little round robin. So 200 for first, 100 for second, 50 for third, 25 for fourth, or 0 for whoever didn't put a ball in the grid.
Yep.
And then you take each of those round robin bracket points and they go onto the leaderboard, and then you get ranked, and the top 8 will progress through to the round of 32, where the same structure happens again.
Yep.
Same structure for the top 16. And then when it's the top 8, it's man on man, 1 set.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
That's exciting. And is that over the course of a couple of days, or you knock it over in one day?
So it'd be over 3 days.
3 days. Okay.
Yeah. So hitting at that high level does still take a toll on your body, as well as the adrenaline dump and stuff like that.
Oh, massively. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to space it out over 3 days, and
I can
yeah,
imagine.
look forward to it.
Is there anything specific in regards to nutrition that that you look at in leading into an event or just for generalized training?
Um, so my supplementation has been really important. Like omega-3s,
Yeah.
glucosamine, um, magnesium has been vital for central nervous system recovery.
Yep.
The central nervous system is it's a really hard thing to understand the feeling of in your body, but once you do for long drive, it's quite important because it's the thing that drives how fast and how twitchy and how fast your body's going to be on the day. Like there'll be sessions where you're like, oh, body feels great, muscles feel fine,
Yep.
but you've done some hard sessions leading up to that, and your central nervous system's just depleted. Doesn't matter how hard you try and swing it,
Yep.
you're slower than the 2 days before just because you gave it a beating.
Wow.
Yeah, so a lot of supplementation to assist the body in its recovery and growth as much as possible. I have a very clean diet. I don't need to be strict on my calories, fortunately. Strict diets really drive me crazy. But fortunately, because of how much we're training, I can basically eat as much as I want.
You'd be burning a lot of calories, yeah.
Yeah, so I generally keep it somewhere between 3,800 and 4,000 calories
Yep.
a day, relatively clean.
Yep.
But I don't need to be strict with it, which is good. Like
Absolutely.
with how much I'm training, the last thing I want to do is have to meal prep strictly.
Yep.
Because I mean, leading up to this, I have my own business that I run too. So my standard week is pretty crazy. And
Yeah, I could imagine. Wow.
adding on the mental toll of having to be strict with a diet,
I reckon so. So how are you going to manage like as you mentioned, within 3 weeks you're going to be between continents basically.
yeah.
In terms of sleep's obviously going to be an integral part of recovery for you to get into the next event and be at peak performance. So
Yeah,
will you
100%.
be, in obviously different time zones and anything like that? Have you put any forethought into how you're going to manage your sleep patterns and stuff like that to ensure that it doesn't impact your events?
Yeah, so 2 days before I fly out internationally, I already start trying to flick over my body clock to the next time zone.
Yeah, wow, okay.
So it's something I do actively focus on because I don't want to have to spend 5 days in one location doing nothing, just trying to switch the body clock over.
Yep.
So I'll get to Florida with 2.5 days of full prep to get the body feeling good.
Fantastic.
As soon as I land, I'll get a gym session in.
Yep.
And then get a remedial, big feed, refuel the body, and then just try to be as strict as you can with that first sleep.
Yep.
And then the hardest part's actually being strict with the wake up. Regardless of how you feel, you have to get the body clock there as soon as possible, and getting straight into the sunlight. Cold shower as soon as you wake up too, and just push as hard as you can mentally to get onto that new time zone as soon as you can.
Unreal. Sounds like you've very much researched everything you need to do to be in peak performance for these events. So no stone left unturned. That's for sure.
There's been a lot of time and effort put into
Yeah,
it.
well, clearly you're committed, as you mentioned at the very start. Once you're in, and you've obviously got a very big objective to win these things. So that's really cool. So you mentioned at the start how obviously COVID set the sport back, but you've seen a pretty substantial growth since the return. Where do you see it headed? Like at the moment, obviously it's not mainstream as we mentioned, but will it get? Do you see it getting like mass media coverage in terms of like on ESPN or on YouTube streaming or anything like that? Is that where the potential is?
Yeah, 100%. So the great thing about GS Sports Entertainment coming into the sport is the amount of money they put in. So cumulatively across the year, it's the most amount of prize money available for athletes to compete for. So it is across 11 events and then the World Championship. So it's quite spread out. So it's not a big purse for each event, but cumulatively it's the most it's been in the sport, which is great. The second half of the year, they've managed to secure TV rights deals before the season even started.
Oh, fantastic.
So that's great. So that, yeah, all the early signs are very promising. Athletes are pushing hard in their training. But yeah, a lot more needs to be done for it to become mainstream. But it definitely has the potential. Like the amount of, like I've already seen a massive change in the sport and people's opinions and awareness of it just from my push on media in Australia and my own social media. Like across March, between all the media that did, got almost 5 million impressions across Australia, which is very sizable with a population of 25 million.
Absolutely.
But I mean, that's just doing my part to grow the sport as much as I can. So when all the American athletes start doing that too, the sport can start taking some strides, because it really just is an awareness thing. Like
Of course.
when people actually come and like they see these swings and us perform on TV and social media and stuff like that, and it's quite freaking impressive what we do. But when they see it in person, they can't believe what's happening. Like when you see someone swing a golf club 160 miles per hour, like I even watch myself and I'm like, that is ridiculous. Like it's like the normal golf fan will go to a PGA event to watch someone like Rory. They just want to watch him hit drives, and he's swinging between 127 and 130 miles per hour at 185 miles per hour ball speed.
Yep.
Like we do drills at quarter effort at that, where we're well past that. But until they see that, that's when it really becomes a spectacle, and that's what we need to just get more eyeballs on the sport.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, you mentioned obviously the prize money and that. Can I ask what the sort of range is? From event to event and stuff.
Yeah, so the prize pool across the 11 tour events is 1.1 million USD.
Okay.
So first prize is roughly 12,000 USD. And then I believe the World Championships has a prize pool on its own of 500,000 USD.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, don't quote me on that last one.
Sure.
That's what I believe it is.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, not the biggest numbers, but it's a starting point.
Absolutely. Well, as you said, with the growth and potential growth that you see, more sponsors, more money.
All sports started somewhere, and I mean, like one really promising sign is for the sport is actually my most recent, or Seven Eyes' most recent sponsorship, getting sponsored by Adidas. We're the only Adidas sponsored athletes in long drive, and they've got some of the biggest names in golf sponsored. So their interest in two up and coming Australian athletes shows the potential that these big companies are watching, and they're interested. We just got to make sure we keep taking the right steps as a sport to engage them and get some more big money coming in.
That's exciting. You mentioned due to lack of facilities in Australia, you obviously can't completely practice the way you normally would. Is there potential for Australia to host an event, or do we just not have the facilities, or we'd have to physically build them to make it work?
Yeah, so we can make it work. There's I mean, Australia's huge. There's plenty of lands. There's heaps of alternate options available, like polo clubs, gun ranges that can be converted into these.
Okay.
But that requires money. And yeah, I already know that World Long Drive is very interested in having events in Australia, because of the rapid progression of both 7i,
Yep.
as well as there being a market here. And yeah, we've spoken to corporates who are quite interested in seeing 7i compete in Australia, because they think it's a bit of a piss take that we're competing on the World Long Drive Tour and it's 11 events in the US.
That's a fair point.
But that's just, I mean, that's your typical American
Of course it
sport
is.
approach.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just want to see the Aussie boys compete on home soil.
Well, oh, absolutely. It'd be amazing. Yeah, 100%. You know, a world tour should effectively take
Yeah.
on the world, but yeah. So you mentioned next event's in Florida, and then you're in Europe, did you say? Whereabouts?
Yeah. Over to Germany.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Whereabouts in
about
Germany?
an hour north of Frankfurt.
Okay. So
Uh,
these existing events obviously have the facilities pre-made to host something like this.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So all of these have hosted events before.
Okay.
So the events in Europe are part of the European Long Drive Tour,
Right.
a much smaller tour. But 7i before, or well before the season started, halfway through our pre-season, committed that we wanted to do as many events as we possibly can this year. Was People forget how long we've been in this sport when they see how quick we swing a club,
Mm.
because the development that we've achieved in a very short period of time is meant to happen over an extended period for your normal long drive athlete. And within that period, they're doing all these events, gaining experience and gaining speed at the same time.
Yep.
Whereas I basically gained all my speed before I even turned pro.
Yeah, right.
So I made my pro debut in Vegas. A few weeks ago. That was Seb's second pro event.
Mm.
So we've committed this year. Like, we obviously expect very high results from ourselves, but this
Sure.
year is all about building experience on the grid,
Yep.
because it is another completely different factor you need to take into account and experience as an athlete. Like I very regularly do a lot of crazy things in life. On the side, I've become a jetpack world champion. I travel in Australia doing jetpack shows in blow up pools with 1/2 meter of water.
Oh, wow.
Adrenaline is something that I chase in life.
Yep.
It's what I require to stay sane. The amount of adrenaline I felt on the grid, at my first event as an amateur was mind blowing. There
Yeah,
was
wow.
something that I always thought that I'd been out of control with my experience in jetpacking.
Mm.
Some of the stuff I've done in that sport is quite stupid and high adrenaline levels. And at a long drive event, standing on a grid, getting ready to hit golf balls was a higher level of adrenaline.
Wow. And in Vegas of all places too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that experience was vital. And it wasn't actually till my second set of my pro debut where I hit the ball 440 yards, which was the longest ball of the event at the time. I
Yep.
was like, yeah, I deserve to be here.
You
Like
belong.
I feel comfortable here.
How good.
Going up against guys that I've watched compete in this sport for 5-10 years and
Yep.
putting it well past, and I was like, yeah, this is where I belong.
Was there a feeling of jealousy, or just like the experienced guys that have been in the game for a long time going, who the hell is this kid? Where did he come from? Was there some feel of that, or was it really a lot of camaraderie and support?
Yeah, so there was mixed treatment at the first event. There was, from most of the top guys, there was a lot of respect immediately.
Mm-hmm.
We felt immediately accepted. I won't name anyone, but
No.
there was one particular athlete that was quite rude and
Oh wow.
and abrasive towards us, but we were expecting that.
Yeah. Okay.
And then it was actually quite humbling from a lot of amateurs coming up to Seb and I saying how they've been following our journey, how inspirational it is. Like they can't believe what they're achieving. Like what we're doing is what's driving them to keep growing. So there was, I mean, overall, it was a really positive experience. Like each night we were having dinners and spending time with past world champions and guys we've looked up to in long drive before we even thought of competing in long drive. So it
Yeah.
was,
Wow.
yeah, it was a really good experience.
That's pretty cool. That's very cool. Do you still get out in the golf course? Like, do you go out and, but do you then have to restrain yourself from overhitting a par four or something?
Yeah, so this is another thing that people they can't fathom really.
Uh,
So before I got into long drive, I was playing off a +1 handicap at my
yep.
home track of Lakelands, which is quite good. But in the time that I started training long drive, I increased my drives on course by over 30 meters.
Yeah,
And
right.
in turn, that improved my handicap from a +1 to a +5.
Yeah, wow.
Um, yeah, so it took my golf to another level. But I've taken a different approach to that as well, that compared to the other long drive athletes is they'll generally have their golf swing that they play on course, and then a faster version of their golf swing is their long drive swing.
Mm,
So when they try and transition that back to the course, you got all kinds of tempo issues and stuff like that. So when
sure.
you're trying to slow down your long drive, you exact same swing from long drive to hitting a wedge. I mean, sometimes it just doesn't work. Whereas I have two completely different swings. I have my on course swing, which is mentally I feel the focus just in my lead leg and just needing to snap my lead leg going into contact for the ball to come out pure. Whereas for long drive, I'm getting 100% of my mass
Mm,
onto my back leg and then 3.5 times body weight forced into the front leg and exploding out. So I've managed to separate them entirely. And there was days in the preseason where I was having rounds of 7, 8, 9 under, and then going and swinging over 150 miles per hour at training on the day. And I mean, I haven't done much research into how many guys have been able to do that.
mm,
But I reckon you could count them on one hand how many guys ever have
yeah,
been able to do that.
that's impressive. Yeah, right. So, did you get out in the course much? Like, is that sort of or is it too much? Is there such a thing as too much golf now, given that you're obviously professional in the long drive?
So in the preseason, I was still training 3, 4 times a week.
Mm,
Because I mean, golf's just been my stress relief.
okay.
I could get out and go have a round at 6 a.m. and fly around playing comp in 3 hours at
Mm,
my track. But as the speeds progressed, I made the decision in January with my long drive coach to actively drop back the amount of rounds of golf I was playing.
yep.
And people are like, oh, because your long drive was affecting your golf. I was like, no, it's the other way around. Like long
Yeah.
drive is making my golf better, but my golf's actually slowing my long drive down.
Ah, okay.
And I obviously wanting to progress as quick as I can
Put more
because
time in.
I mean this is the sport I'm committed to now.
Yep.
Until I'm world number one. So I'll do whatever it takes to achieve that goal. So I mean I do miss playing all the golf that I was playing,
Hmm.
especially at the level I was at because I was pushing hard to try and shoot a 59 at my home track.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so yeah, my PB there was 11 birdies in a round. So I was getting close to what was required.
Mm,
So that's had to take back step. And
Oh, that's all right. You got
yeah,
bigger ambitions at the moment, which is very exciting and very cool.
exactly.
Yeah. So how can people watch the next event? Is it going to be streamed? Is it going to be on Instagram? You know, how do people follow your journey to this first event in Florida?
Yeah, so anyone that follows me on social media, I'll be putting the links up. But the event will be live on the World Long Drive YouTube channel
Okay.
for the first half of the season.
Yep.
Then it goes on to TV coverage. So I still need to find out how, once it gets to TV, how Australians can watch it. I know how all the Americans and Europeans can watch it live.
Yep.
But I need to find out if and how Australians can. But yeah, for now, yeah, follow the links. I'll put it up in my socials or jump on the World Long Drive YouTube.
Unreal. So what's your social, just for anyone who wants to now follow along and follow your journey?
Yeah, so my two biggest ones are Instagram, it's matt.stubbs, matt.stubbs, and then TikTok's the other big one, Matt Stubbs _.
Unreal, mate. Unreal. Well, I'll round it off now, but thanks so much for your time, considering you're about to jet off and and represent Australia. It's ever since I heard the interview, I thought I got to try and talk to this guy, because this is it's just fascinating. It really is, from a biomechanical and fitness perspective, but just because I'm a weekend hacker, so I just love the sport as well. So seeing the growth that you've achieved in such a short space of time is just fascinating. So well done, mate, and all the best in the upcoming events. And I'll finish on that last question that you were a little bit struggling on when I sent you the questions. But obviously, I ask everyone, who would you invite to dinner? So this is more personality based, and they can be alive or dead, fictional, non-fictional, male, female. You can have a couple if you want. It's completely up to you.
Yeah, so I mean, I've always been a golf sicko, so I'm gonna take that approach and trust that there's a 4-ball round before dinner.
I like it.
I'd have to go with Tiger. He's
Of
been
course.
my idol since ever since I can remember, for obvious reasons. And then after seeing his relationship he has with JT, I'd love to experience that. And then Cam Smith too, because comes across as an absolute legend for both himself and golf in Australia. Just seems like a great character and bloke. So those three will get on the course.
That'd be a pretty good foursome.
Yeah.
You do a few cashies and see if you can outdrive them.
That's one thing I'd feel comfortable having. Especially Tiger might even be able to get him with a 3-iron now.
Oh, look out! That'd be awesome. Oh, so good. Oh, well, thanks once again, Matt. I really appreciate your time, and I'll be watching with keen interest to see how you go, and best of luck with all the upcoming events.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it.
No problem at all.